Hello, everybody, and welcome to the 14th episode of Off the Cuff. Now, I am quite looking forward to this episode. It's not too much to talk about, but there's a lot of things I wanted to kind of share my thoughts on. Now, if you've not listened to Off the Cuff before, as per usual, I'm just sharing my thoughts on various things. I do have articles and some facts to back up a lot of the stuff I'm saying. But yeah, if you have anything to back up or disprove anything I'm saying, or you want to, debate it, then do share a comment below, and I'll either roll back my statement or I'll challenge it. I'll probably challenge it. I tend to be quite stubborn like that, but I'm always up for discussion if anything I say can be challenged. Now, to start off, I wanted to respond to something that Sargon was talking about recently. I already had my own views on the matter. Sargon of Akkad was recently talking about David Lammy's idea about the comic relief and his whole thing about white people getting out of there, all that kind of stuff he was talking about. And I just felt like, David Lammy, he actually had a point. At least if you take the whole trailer type video thing he made about it, he actually made a decent point. It is a point I have thought about for a time. And he talks about basically African people being seen in a certain way. Now, whether or not David Lammy has gotten the result he wanted to get, whether or not he's, he wanted to reduce all the donations going in, I don't know. Or whether or not he's just trying to be racist toward white people. Who knows? But I was just trying to say that basically what I see is, in Africa, you've got a lot of countries, that are struggling. They're, war-torn. They have corrupt government officials. And I find a lot of the donations and charities are doing absolutely nothing. Because if they were doing something, surely they would have made a pretty significant impact by now. But you got this whole problem of incentive. Now, I wanted to do another video of it sometime. Someday I'll do another video about it. But basically, you got this whole concept of what the incentive is, and what of these sort of goal-driven organizations, I call them. You got companies that want to, or charities that want to fix poverty in Africa, as if that can be done that easily. But the thing is that in order for them to survive, poverty has to continue to exist. And while the individuals on the ground might have their own genuine goodwill, or even self-serving, if they honestly look into themselves, and maybe they'll realize it's all about their own feeling good about themselves. But, the organizations as a whole have an incentive to continue to survive and not want to see African countries brought up from the depths, from their sort of crutch-like position. And then you do have this whole idea where us, the people donating to these charities, we see African countries as countries to be helped and pitied and so on. And the problem is that when you keep telling someone how poor they are, you can see this happen in the US and the UK and many other countries. You see this happen where when people are allowed to be victims of their circumstances, they accept that. They learn to blame everything on that victim status. So you see it happen a lot now these days. There's a lot of victimization has become a great thing. And the same thing seems to happen in Africa, where you got these countries which are treated like victims of the circumstances. And so you can just say to them, oh, no, don't worry. Your struggles, the way you are, it's not your fault. You don't have to do anything. We will help you. And therefore, these people never learn to... African people never learn to kind of dig themselves out of the hole. Now, I'm not saying that they can dig themselves out of the hole. It's not that easy, and they are in dire circumstances, really. But we also shouldn't be just giving them everything they need. I like to use my father as a role model here, because he's done a lot of work for, I believe, 2 decades in African countries and many other countries. He's helped to build communities, and I forget if he directly taught me this, or if I just kind of took on this viewpoint from the way I heard what he was saying. But basically, I've got this viewpoint that in order to grow these countries out of their sort of dire circumstances, you can't just give them everything they need and expect nothing in return, because then they're just getting it for free and they can just wait for the next freebie. So what you do, and this is something my dad did, is you get them to give something in return at a lower rate. So, for example, you build them a house, they can live in that house, but they have to actually pay it back. Very, very low rates, very low amount that they have to pay back, because, they usually build these houses on very basic levels. And you don't just do that. You try and look for investors. You look for people who are willing to build shopping centers or just shops, looking to build businesses in these communities. You create communities, because Africa is ripe for massive growth. Why else would China be looking to expand into Africa? Because they can see that there is an opportunity there, and they're going to seize it. And we're too busy just trying to hand them scraps to survive, instead of teaching them how to survive and helping them to prosper, really. So yeah, I've got this whole notion of the poor African countries that David Lammy pointed out, that we were just looking at all these African countries as these poor people, despite the fact that many of them are thriving. He's kind of got a point there. You can't continue to treat them like the poor little country you're going to help. There are some that need it more than others, so yeah, focus on those. I would say make sure that you know what's happening with the money, because if you look at the fair trade farms, there was a case a while back where they found out that many of the fair trade farms are not only driving other farms out of business, but they're also massively inadequate. Like, for example, they'd fund building these nice bathroom facilities on some of the farms, and then you find out that the bathroom facilities are being exclusively allowed for only managers and not for the farm workers. So, you got that kind of stuff going on, and you just continue to donate money towards them. So you kind of need to know what's happening there. And I think that looking at charities, I'm grown up. I try and avoid charities these days. I don't like the idea of donating money to an organization where I don't know what's going to happen with that money most of the time. And I would rather donate money to something like my father's organization, because I know that he is going to put together he's going to put together a group of people who are going to work there on the ground. He's going to work with the government in that country closely, and he's actually my dad doesn't see them as poor people to be helped. My dad sees them as people who can be helped, but not for free. Not for free. You're not going to give them a handout, because they are no different to you or I. They are no different. They have different circumstances, but they are not incapable of contributing, or just they don't just lie on the ground and expect help, unless they've been told they can. Because if you tell them that they can just accept they can just accept freebies for the rest of their life, they'll do that. You got to give them incentive. You got to help. You got to kind of encourage people and give them a reason to work hard. There are some people who don't need anyone else to tell them this, but a lot of people need the incentive. They need the reason to. And survival is a strong instinct. But you got to kick it in. You can't just allow people to just sit back and take what they get. The same thing happens with welfare and benefits. Welfare in the US, benefits in the UK, is that people are locked into a dependency that they find it very difficult to get out of. And those aren't African countries, but the same kind of thing happens, because people are getting a certain amount of money. They don't have any incentive to try and get out of it. Now, I know some people can't get out of it, but that's a case-by-case basis. Anyway, so another little thing I wanted to talk about really was, it's just a very brief point, was the case of Trevor Noah being cucked, really. I feel bad every time I hear about some new thing Trevor Noah said, because being from South Africa, I feel a kinship with Trevor Noah, and I was really excited when I heard that he was being brought onto The Daily Show. But, he's just swallowed the same rhetoric that all the late night show hosts seem to spouse out now. And yeah, I just saw this case now that he was basically saying that Trevor Noah Trevor Noah isn't. Trevor Noah was saying that Trump and white supremacists are basically Trump and the New Zealand shooter are the products of white supremacy. That's basically what he said. And yeah, I feel like that Trevor Noah is kind of, I don't even think he even knows remotely what he's talking about. And he's just, it's just the same level of hate. And it makes me want to ask, Trevor Noah, would you say then that the horrible, dire circumstances of South African ESCOM, is that because of white supremacy as well? What happened is the farms in Zimbabwe, is that also white supremacy? Just because bad things happen, it doesn't mean it's because of white supremacists there. I'd love to see Trevor Noah's example evidence around this. Like he said here, he's not white supremacist, but all white supremacists think that he's a white supremacist. Like, what kind of evidence is that? I mean, what white supremacists has Trevor Noah been speaking to? I gotta wonder that, Is Trevor Noah now the expert on what white supremacists think? Because last I checked, a lot of people have a very, very incorrect and inaccurate idea of what white supremacists are and how prevalent white supremacy is in the United States. And I think that just based on that, saying that Trump is a product of white supremacy is just a cop-out, frankly. Trump is the product of your absolute inadequacy to evaluate the political situation and the public's ideas of how well they are being represented and being heard and being represented, really. So why don't you look at yourself, sort yourself out, and Trevor Noah, while you're at it, why don't you look at South Africa and bring some light to some of the crap that's going on down there? Because, I'm not surprised, South Africa, I never realized, was such a strongly communist nation. It's no surprise to see South Africa going the way it's going. And knowing that Trevor Noah grew up in that, it's no wonder that he holds some of the views, that he is so malleable in the views that he holds. He has so easily taken on this new idea of the late night show host rhetoric. Anyway, so moving on. I saw this story the other day about Caroline Farrow, and I've just been reading up more on it today. Honestly, it's really fascinating what went on there. I mean, the original Good Morning show happened last September, from what I know. Now, if you're not aware of what happened there, so Caroline Farrow is a Catholic commentator. She appeared on a show called Good Morning Britain with Piers Morgan to debate with Susie Green. And they were basically debating, I believe, changing notions of gender in modern society. And Farrow was arguing basically she doesn't believe a person can transition from one gender to another, which is informed by her Catholic faith. She thinks that gender is immutable, which, as far as the public are concerned, is still a very valid stance. But as far as the mainstream media and social justice warriors are concerned, that is unspeakable and not with the times. But what's new? So basically, Farrow was reported to her local police department because she identified Susie Green's daughter, in quotes, as a boy. Now, the whole idea of transgenderism is still up for debate because the public will not be told what they must and must not think. And as transgenderism is now starting to make its way into society, you're starting to see the opposition grow because more and more people are starting to see that the police force, the government, the officials, the authorities, the lawmakers are informed by a vastly different ideology than most of the public. I don't have statistics to back that up, but I think it's demonstrable. You just have to look at what's going on. You look at the growing opposition to the transgender ideologies and the progressive or regressive ideologies. So, basically, Carolyn was she was told that she needs to be interviewed by the Guildford police, and this is absolutely hilarious. And this ties in with what I said a few episodes back about the British police's, well, I believe so, the Metropolitan Police's idea of definition of what hate speech is. It's fully subjective. So Carolyn was saying that what she said was not illegal, no crime, and yeah, she's perfectly happy with what she believes in and all that, and she hasn't broken any laws. But I reckon that with the changes in the hate speech, the idea of what hate speech is, she will get in trouble. But the public aren't they aren't as privy to the ridiculous ideologies that the authorities are informed by. So I'm curious to see where this heads further on. Yeah, what's going to happen with this, because because most of the public is going to agree with her. I can say that for a fact. The problem we've got here is most of the public won't know. They won't know what's happened to us. I'm going to share the article. I've got a Daily Wire article up here, but I'll share the article about this. I didn't want to share the Telegraph one because I didn't have access to it, and I'm not going to sign up for that. But I'll link the Telegraph one as well. And if you want to share the article, please just help raise awareness on this whole thing, because, like I say, most people are going to oppose it. In my opinion, I'm confident most people are going to oppose it, but it's mainly they're going to oppose the whole idea of the police getting involved. But most people aren't going to be aware of it, and that's the problem we've got these days. Is that the police and they just wait till it gets swept under the rug. Speaking of which, you might have heard about Tommy Robinson being charged again. I did mention it last week. Basically, Tommy Robinson is being charged for his contempt of court case again. And it turns out that his court case in 3 days, or 2 days now, it's 3 days as of recording, his court case has been adjourned till sometime in May. And this is the same thing the police have been doing for his case the whole bloody time. They just keep pushing it back and back and back, and they are wasting money left, right, and center. They're holding these cases, wasting money on that, and never mind that they are. I don't know if it's intentional, but there are people who make plans. They'll take time off from work. They'll get their tickets. They'll get coaches, whatever they need to come down to London to go support Tommy. And then the case gets adjourned. The court case, the trial, gets adjourned, and then they're going to delay it. So they'll keep delaying it. I think they delayed it like 3-4 times last year, and it makes me wonder: is there not something that can be done about this? Because how much money should the authorities be allowed to waste? How much is okay to waste? Because it seems like they're just waiting for more evidence to show up, or they're waiting till Tommy Robinson loses the support that he needs, that people aren't able to show up, and then they'll just be able to sweep it under the rug or just make sure they can do it without a riot. The problem is, it's going to be a while till that happens. There's many people who support Tommy. But even if they're not there, this is vile. This is a vile action to just keep delaying this stupid case that has no basis. And I just hope that Tommy is able to keep his legal representation for the whole time, because I'm so glad to see that Tommy, in the last year, he's just started to get proper defenses. People who are willing to pay for legal defense for Tommy. I'm so glad to hear about that, because it's changed everything. And I just want to know. I'm just curious, how many times are they going to be allowed to push back the case? I wish they would just drop it, but I don't think they're going to. It's the same thing happens with these sort of copyright infringement changes, when they wanted to, well, not copyright, when they wanted to ban certain websites, like I'm trying to remember now, when they wanted to bring in SOPA and PIPA, and I believe more recently what we actually got through was the Snoopers Charter, which Theresa May introduced. And these things will get rejected and rejected and rejected over and over again, and eventually they manage to sneak it through. And I think that's what they're trying to do with Tommy Robinson's case. They're just going to keep pushing it till no one, well, not till no one, just till they've got enough. Till they've got enough reduction that they can get him put away without too much of a ruckus. Anyway, I'll move on from that now. So the one last thing I wanted to talk about was this thing that came to my attention recently about the organ donations. They're going to change how it works here in the UK. So March next year, I believe, they're changing it so that organ donations is no longer an opt-in thing. It will become an opt-out thing. Now, when you go on web pages, you go on new web pages, you get that little pop-up. It's really bloody annoying, and it goes, do you want to opt in? Do you want to opt out? Change your marketing preferences, blah, 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 blah. I always opt out, personally. This has only happened because of the EU changing their laws, the GDPR regulations, that now they have to ask you. Before, you were opted in automatically. And the EU said, hey, that's wrong. They can do some things right, I guess. They said people need to be asked. They need to give their consent. But there's this interesting thing going on here with the organ donation. They're saying that no, you're opted in automatically, and you can opt out. And I chuckled because I saw a quote from the Director of Organ Donation and Transplantation for NHS Blood and Transplant. Bloody hell, that's a title. He said he hopes that once the law is implemented, they will see more people agreeing to donate, therefore resulting in life-saving transplants. More people agreeing to donate once that law is implemented. So once people are automatically opted in, automatically organ donors, what he means is he's hoping that not many people will opt out. Yes, he's right. He's right. More people will agree to donate because they won't be given in a choice. They won't be asked first whether they want to agree. They'll be assumed to have agreed already. And over time, obviously, people will be born. They won't be aware of this law. Now, it makes me wonder. Now, when a person passes out or is knocked out unconscious or something like that, you have these do not resuscitate type things, and people have to give their consent. If you can, you have to get their consent. Because even if they've passed out, it's still their body. They still have to give consent, even if they've maybe died. I mean, I know you can't get their consent, but there is all sorts of times, like euthanasia. You got to get people's consent. Like it's next to kin, you got to get consent. So it's interesting that this law now comes in and it raises this question. After you die, is it no longer your body? Because if it is still your body, should you not get consent as to what happens with your body? Hell, why not just forget about necrophilia? Because if you can just take their organs once they die, they have no consent. You can just assume consent once they're dead too for any sexual interaction, can't you? No doubt that is probably some sort of ridiculous straw man, but still, you got to think about these things, because what's to say that there won't be other things that you get opted into automatically? And what control of your body do you have? People get to choose cremation or burial and so on. Who's to say they can't change their minds now? You got to opt out automatically? Who's to say that why do people get automatic access to your organs, to your body once you're dead? Frankly, it's quite ridiculous. And I'm probably going to opt out. Maybe it's a bit of a, what do you call it? Revolt? No, revolt's not the right word. A rebellion, really. I might opt out because I just oppose the opt-in automatic thing. That's what I do when I access websites now. When they ask me, do you want to opt in or opt out? I'm like, opt out. Opt the hell out. No. That's also because of privacy, but Okay, so definitely I'm going to share, I've got a few articles on that one from the NHS itself, one from the BBC, and one from Heart. I'll be sharing those as well. So before I finish, please remember, do share that the articles on the Carolyn Farrow thing about the transgender being interviewed by the police and so on, because really it's really ridiculous and people need to know about it, because we need to get more and more opinions, more people talking about it, because I don't think enough people are. And I think that most people are inclined to disagree with what the authorities view about transgenderism. Anyway, that's all from me. I will be back next week, and hopefully I'll have an update soon on the representation map application. As per usual, if you have any disagreements with any of the stuff I said, you have some counter arguments or counter articles, please do share them. I would love to read them. I do like to kind of hear both sides of the story or both sides of the case and so on. But yeah, till next time.